What is your opinion about owning commodities, mining stocks in a global reset? Well, guys, I've been listening to a book, an audio book, all weekend, and I'll show you which one it is. I'd love to promote this any way I can. If you bought a house, and I'm almost done with, I think I'm almost done with it. But this is the book that I have been listening to all weekend. See if you can see it. So if you can't see it, it's Jim Rogers' Hot Commodities. So this is a book that he wrote in 2004. And most of you know what Commodities did from 1998 to 2011 or so. I'd also like to point out that in this book, Jim talks about the index fund he set up for commodities. He set that up in 1998. Go ahead and pull up a chart of commodities and look at when they bottomed out. You'll see that it just happened to be 1998 when Jim Rogers set up his fund to not buy tech stocks, not buy .com this or .com that, but to buy pork bellies, to buy orange juice, to buy gold, to buy oil. I don't know if he was buying coal, but those are some of the commodities that I heard him talk about specifically. This is what Jim Rogers was doing in 1998. And when you pull up a chart of commodities, you will instantly learn a lesson, a very good lesson. In the book, he also talks about the real estate market being in a bubble. He talks about the commodity cycle ending in 2015 to 2022. So he got that wrong by a couple years. But boy, oh boy, did he get the cycle right. That's for sure. And the other projections that he gives in the book, he nails like 90% of what actually came to fruition. The timing, a little off here and there, but overall just nails it. So what's my point? A lot of the arguments that Jim Rogers was giving for a commodities bull run in 2004, and he started talking about this in 1998, is very consistent with what we see happening right now. The only difference, not the only, but the main difference is that back then China was just growing by leaps and bounds as far as their economy. And as you guys know from watching my videos in Evergrande, we could go into a time frame when China's economy is pulling back a bit and they're not consuming as many commodities as they were but maybe they are though. Maybe they are. Let me take that back, because you've got to think about the size of China's economy back in 2004. And although it was growing quickly, it probably was still smaller, therefore less demand for commodities than China's economy today, even if they had a 10% pullback. Even if they had a recession where their economy contracted by 10%, still probably using more commodities than they were using back in 2004, even if they're growing at 10% back then. So that was one of his main arguments, is that supply demand, and then supply, no one's investing in it, just like we don't see anyone investing really in commodities today, which is why we're seeing oil at 130, why you're seeing nat gas at these all-time highs, because this was persona non grata. As Jim Cramer said on CNBC, oil is uninvestable. And he said that back when it was like 40 or whatever, because of ESG. Coal, another thing, uninvestable. Well, whenever you're buying things, and again, this is not I'm not suggesting you do this, but I'm saying, just based on my research, whenever you're buying things that are quote unquote uninvestable, or you're buying things where everyone is telling you that you're absolutely out of your mind, I think it's worth looking into. I know in my life, in my investment journey, and I'm just a noob. I'm a rookie. I'm an amateur, but I just, I didn't know anything before 2012. That's when I retired and started investing for myself, and I started off in real estate. But well, I think the main thing there is not only investing in what you know, but every time that I've invested in something that other people thought was insane, I've made the most amount of money. Every time I've invested in something where people thought that was a great idea, those are the only times that I came close to losing money. So, point is, try to invest in something at the point in time when people are telling you that you're absolutely crazy. And I think there could be a lot of opportunities that we see in the next year or 2 years where people are telling you that you're absolutely crazy. And I think that it's hard to pull the trigger from a psychological standpoint, but that's what everyone was telling Jim Rogers back in 1998. But I kind of got off on a tangent there. I apologize. My main thing to point out was look at a chart of commodity cycles going back to the 1800s. And what you'll see is the up cycle to the overall, up and back down is usually about 15 years. So, assuming that we have another commodity cycle, like we have had commodity cycles going back to the 1800s in the United States, then we could say that there's a high probability that this super cycle lasts another maybe at least 10 years. Say we're 2 years into it. I think if you're going to try to find a starting point, maybe March 2020, or maybe when when oil got to negative $38 a barrel, my guess is when we look back in 20 years, that was probably the low. that started the next uptrend on the super cycle. And so I'm not saying go out and buy commodities now, but what I am personally doing, Pedro, is just saying what commodities would I like to own for the next 10 years, putting them on a watch list, and then just waiting until I see some panic in those commodities and then buy. And that's what I'm doing. I'm not saying it's right for you. I'm not suggesting anyone do that, but that's kind of how I see it in my mind. And I would strongly suggest you guys reading or listening to that audio book or that book from Jim Rogers, Hot Commodities. The whole book is awesome. And you'll hear a lot of similarities between what was happening back then and at kind of the earlier stages of that super cycle. You'll hear a lot of similarities or read a lot of similarities between what was happening then and what is happening now.